Hi, I'm Cassandra Pelham-Fulton, Editorial Director at the Graphics Imprint at Scholastic. I'm here with Raina Telgemeier and Scott McCloud. Hi.
Hi, Cassandra.
Hi, Cassandra.
Thank you for being here with us. Tell us about the Cartoonists Club. When and where did you first talk about doing this project?
Well, we were at San Diego a few years ago, and we were at the Scholastic party, and my family, we've known Raina since forever, and we were just talking about this and that. And Raina said, you know what would be really amazing is to have a kind of understanding comics, but for kids. I did this book, Understanding Comics, years ago, which explained how comics work, but it was mostly for adults.
I've been, in front of kids. I've been writing for kids. I've been working with kids and doing assemblies and wishing that I had a book like Understanding Comics to recommend to middle grade readers. Eventually I realized, I think I need to write this book, but I'm not qualified to do it on my own, so that's why I asked Scott himself if he wanted to do it with me.
And speaking of collaboration, what did you each bring to your respective areas of expertise and experience to this project?
I don't know if I'd call it expertise, but I've been working as a children's author for 20 years now. I know the kinds of things they're curious about. I know the types of books they like to read. I love that conversation with them. And in my Q&As, the same set of questions comes up over and over again. And it's things like, where do you begin, with the words or the pictures? And how do you come up with an idea that's good enough? So I don't know if I'd call that expertise exactly, but I feel like I knew that was the template for what we were going to write.
I would call it expertise. And I was going in as a novice, of course. When we started working on this book, I had a lot of experience talking to adults and doing lectures and things like that. But the middle grade space, talking to kids, that was something I'd never encountered before. And I was learning from Raina at every step. And I'm very schematic. I'm very controlled in my layouts and my plans. Sometimes you just have to just sweep them off the table and start over and let it all be more spontaneous, more natural. Increasingly, it became a story led by the characters themselves, our kids. Michaela, Howard, Art, and Linda, those kids took on a life of their own.
And I love hearing the questions that the kids were asking you, because now I'm thinking about the questions the characters in the book were asking and picturing them being at your events and asking you those questions. Okay, so who is your favorite member of the Cartoonist Club and why?
It's very hard to choose a favorite clubber, and that's a strange word to say out loud, but it's what we call them. As far as like who feels the most like young Raina as a young budding cartoonist, our character Linda, she's very shy, she's kind of withdrawn, she's very like protective of what's going on inside her sketchbook. But when the other kids finally see her artwork, they're like, oh my gosh, you can really like communicate and tell a story with what you're putting down. And she's like, I don't know if it's good enough. And similarly, like it took me years, almost decades, before I was ready to share my work with other people. They saw my drawings, but they didn't see my comics and like my personal stories that I was telling. That was kind of a really private thing for me for a long time.
Like Raina, it's easy for me to look at the cast and see somebody who's maybe a little bit more like me, and that would be the character of Art. And Art is fascinated by just the way things work and inventing and trying out new things and having lots of hobbies. And that curiosity is something that I had as a kid too, and I have as an adult. But one of the most important ideas that we want to convey is the idea that there's no one way to become an artist. And so we haven't shown 4 kids trying to become the same kind of artist. We've shown 4 kids who are finding their own path, their own passions. Howard, Michaela, and Linda, they're all excited by entirely different things. They're different kinds of artists, and they have different passions. And I hope that that will say to kids that there's no one right way to make art.
Right, or to be interested in the comics medium.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait for people to meet all 4 of the clubbers and other characters in the Cartoonist Club. Thank you, Raina. Thank you, Scott.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Cassandra.